The world is facing a crisis of fake news, and the problem only seems to be getting worse. Almost a decade ago, a group of us started working on this. We wanted to know, how well can ordinary people identify fake news? And even more importantly, how can we help them do better? We performed a series of large-scale experiments with over 1,000 subjects. What we found surprised us, and it gives us a lot more hope about a way out of this crisis. Here's what we did. We gave subjects an equal number of fake and true news items to see if they could judge them correctly. They had a lot of trouble, with an accuracy around 60%. Remember, they could get 50% by just guessing. Our idea was this. What if we provide people with discursive information about news items, that is, some useful text that could help them to consider the item more thoughtfully? To do this, we got texts from a fact-checking site, so subjects got to read some knowledgeable discussion of the news item before deciding whether it was true or false. We found that this consistently helped, improving judgments by around 6%. This strongly supports our idea that providing discursive evidence can improve people's judgment of news. As an alternative, we also tried low-quality information. Here, we just did a web search with the news headline itself as the search string. With this low-quality information, subjects failed to improve. So you might think the low-quality information is having no effect. But here, we noticed something surprising. The low-quality information is having big effects on judgments. On true claims, judgments improved around 6%, but on false claims, they get worse roughly the same amount. That's why in the aggregate, there's no improvement with the low-quality information. Instead, what it's doing is inducing individuals to believe claims they had previously not believed, and is doing this equally for both true and false claims. This was not at all something we'd been looking for, but this seems to show that it's easier to convince someone to believe a true claim than it is to convince them to disbelieve a false one. This is a general observation we've made with our data. There's an important asymmetry between false claims and true claims. We also tried something different. We tried priming our subjects so that they're unconsciously made more aware of the concepts of truth and falsity. We did this with some initial questions where subjects had to come up with antonyms to words like true, real, and honest, in the hopes that subjects would have these concepts in mind when they were judging the news items. This, it turned out, made a big difference. With the low-quality information, accuracy improved by around 6% with priming, about as high as the improvements with the high-quality information. Now, you might be wondering about something else. What about bias? Isn't this the big problem with fake news? We're all stuck in our echo chambers on the left or the right, and we're not willing to listen to valid arguments if they come from the wrong side. We decided to test this. We sorted the news items into two groups, matching and unmatching. When a news item supports the subject's political orientation, we call that matching. Otherwise, it's non-matching. What we found is that people are actually not stuck in those echo chambers. They improve their judgments equally well, whether the item supports their own political position or not. The bottom line is, we found that people can substantially improve their judgments of news items. And here's the key thing. We don't try to convince people whether a news item is true or not. Our approach is much more indirect. We induce people to activate their own faculty of critical thinking, and this, we found, can be done consistently. This is why we find our results so hopeful. After all, it's not that we need to get people to agree all the time. What we need is that people approach news with a critical and constructive mindset. We're convinced that this is an effective way out of the crisis of fake news, and we'd like to think that our results represent some initial steps in that direction.